The Golden State Warriors return to the floor tonight with a chance to reset the narrative after a frustrating performance that did not reflect the broader direction. This team has been trending toward coming off a game that quickly spiraled due to an unsustainable shooting night from the opponent. The Warriors now find themselves facing a Dallas squad that, on paper, looks dangerous, but in reality is dealing with significant physical setbacks. That contrast alone makes this matchup far more intriguing than it might appear at first glance, because it places Golden State in a position where execution, focus, and discipline should ultimately outweigh raw talent. The previous game against Toronto needs to be viewed through the proper lens. That night was not about systemic failure or a breakdown in identity, but rather an opponent catching fire in a way that rarely repeats itself. When a team converts well over half of its attempts from long range and multiple players reach offensive peaks simultaneously, there is very little any defense can do to fully stop the bleeding. Despite that, the Warriors managed to stabilize portions of the game, trim the margin, and avoid a complete collapse. Those moments matter because they reveal a team that is still competing, even when the circumstances are stacked against them. Against Dallas, the dynamics shift significantly. The Mavericks have shown resilience throughout the season, but injuries have chipped away at their continuity and rhythm. When rotations become unstable and key contributors are listed as day-to-day, it forces lineups into uncomfortable roles. That is exactly where Golden State can apply pressure. The Warriors thrive when they can dictate pace early, stretch the floor, and force opponents into constant defensive decisions. If they establish that tempo from the opening minutes, this game has the potential to tilt quickly in their favor. There is also a quiet confidence surrounding this matchup that stems from how Golden State has responded in similar situations before, when coming off games that feel like momentum killers. This team has historically answered with sharper ball movement and more intentional shot selection. The emphasis shifts toward trust in the system rather than chasing quick scoring bursts. That approach becomes even more effective when the opposing front court is compromised, because it opens driving lanes and creates cleaner looks from the perimeter beyond the immediate game. There is a growing sense that this road trip could act as a pivot point for the season. The Warriors are not simply chasing wins, they are evaluating fit, chemistry, and long-term balance. Every game now doubles as both competition and assessment. Lineups are being scrutinized, minute distributions are being weighed carefully, and the front office is undoubtedly paying attention to how certain combinations perform under pressure. One storyline quietly gaining traction is the possibility of roster movement. Once this stretch concludes, injuries within the lineup have exposed gaps that cannot be ignored, particularly when it comes to consistent shooting and defensive reliability on the wing. That reality has sparked discussions about whether a familiar solution could re-enter the picture. The idea of bringing back a player who understands the system, spacing, and culture is appealing, especially when contracts align and flexibility remains intact. A potential reunion would not be about nostalgia, but about practicality. The Warriors' system demands precise timing, quick decision-making, and comfort without the ball. Not every player can adapt to that environment immediately. No matter how talented they are, a familiar face, even one experiencing a down year elsewhere, could theoretically reintegrate faster than an untested option. The financial side also matters, as manageable contracts and future flexibility remain priorities for a team that is balancing competitiveness with sustainability. At the same time, Golden State is being careful not to sacrifice its young core unnecessarily. There is clear intent to avoid moves that mortgage development for short-term gains. That balance is delicate, and it places players like Jonathan Kuminga under an intense spotlight. His situation is particularly interesting because it reflects the broader tension between patience and urgency. When opportunities have been limited, it becomes difficult to demonstrate value. Yet the organization still believes there is untapped potential waiting to surface. Trade rumors inevitably swirl around players in that position, especially as deadlines approach. Some proposed scenarios are ambitious, others feel speculative, but they all share a common theme. Expiring contracts have become one of the most valuable currencies in the modern league. Under the current collective bargaining framework, flexibility several seasons down the line can be more appealing than immediate star power. Teams rebuilding over multiple years are prioritizing financial maneuverability as much as on-court production. This is where the Warriors' long-term planning becomes especially relevant. Contracts set to come off the books in future summers are not just accounting details. They represent strategic leverage. Having the ability to reset a roster, absorb distressed assets, or enter a free agent market with real spending power changes how negotiations unfold. It also explains why some teams are willing to part with established names in exchange for contracts that offer relief later rather than immediate returns. For Golden State, remaining competitive while preserving that flexibility is the ultimate goal. They are not positioned as a lottery team, nor are they all in on a single championship run at any cost. Instead, they are threading the needle, aiming to stay relevant now while keeping doors open for major moves in the seasons ahead. That philosophy influences every decision, from rotation tweaks to potential trades as tonight's game approaches. All of those layers sit quietly beneath the surface. On the court, it will come down to energy, execution, and whether the Warriors can impose their style early. Off the court, every possession adds context to larger conversations about where this team is headed. The Mavericks game is not just another entry in the schedule, it is another data point in an ongoing evaluation that could shape the direction of the franchise moving forward. As the focus stays on the present, individual performances take on even more importance, especially for players who are trying to redefine their role within the rotation. Jonathan Kuminga sits right at the center of that conversation. His recent absence from meaningful minutes was not simply about performance, but about caution and long-term health management. Still, time on the bench does not silence speculation. If anything, it amplifies it, because teams around the league are always watching for flashes of upside, even when opportunities are limited. For Kuminga, every shift back on the floor becomes an audition, not only for Golden State, but for the broader market. The challenge for him now is rhythm. After extended stretches without consistent game action, timing can feel slightly off. Reads come a half-second late, and confidence must be rebuilt possession by possession. That is why games like this one against Dallas matter so much. Against the defense dealing with injuries and lineup uncertainty, there are windows to attack, cut with purpose, and show decisiveness. Those moments resonate far beyond the box score because they signal readiness and growth. From the team perspective, the coaching staff is clearly trying to balance accountability with opportunity. There is no interest in forcing development at the expense of structure. Yet there is also an understanding that talent must eventually be unleashed. Kuminga represents that crossroads. His physical tools are undeniable, but consistency and decision-making are the currencies that earn trust within this system. Each drive, each defensive rotation, and each off-ball movement carries weight. At the same time, Stephen Curry's role continues to evolve subtly. His scoring remains impactful, but the way defenses are reacting has shifted the burden toward playmaking and gravity more than raw volume. Opponents are content to send extra attention his way early, betting that others will hesitate. That creates an environment where patience becomes a weapon. Curry does not need explosive scoring nights every game to control outcomes. Sometimes his influence is felt most when the offense flows through him, without forcing the final shot. That approach also speaks to how the Warriors are compensating for injuries elsewhere in the lineup, with key contributors sidelined. Ball movement and shared responsibility have become necessities rather than luxuries. Rebounding, secondary playmaking, and defensive communication are all being emphasized. In these situations, Golden State's experience shows. They understand that winning margins are often built through details rather than highlights. Looking ahead, the trade deadline looms like a quiet hum in the background. Conversations around potential blockbusters are unavoidable, especially when expiring contracts and rebuilding timelines intersect. There are scenarios being discussed across the league that would have seemed improbable just a few seasons ago. Star players carrying massive salaries are no longer untouchable if the long-term picture does not align. That reality changes how front offices operate and how players are perceived. Golden State is not immune to those dynamics. The organization has always valued continuity, but it has also shown a willingness to be pragmatic when circumstances demand it. Any major move would need to preserve the team's identity while addressing clear weaknesses. That is a narrow path to walk, particularly when chemistry has been hard-earned over years of shared success. There is also the psychological aspect to consider. Rumors can weigh on players, even when they insist otherwise. Knowing that your name is circulating, that your future might be tied to a deal still taking shape, adds pressure. How players respond to that pressure often reveals more than their stat lines. Some shrink, others sharpen. The Warriors will be watching closely. Meanwhile, league-wide trends continue to reinforce the value of flexibility. Teams are increasingly reluctant to lock themselves into rigid financial structures that limit adaptability. Contracts that expire in future summers are now strategic assets, capable of unlocking opportunities when elite talent becomes available. That is why discussions around future free agent classes matter so much, even years in advance. Planning is no longer seasonal, it is cyclical. For the Warriors, this means that patience today could translate into power tomorrow. Maintaining competitiveness without overcommitting allows them to stay relevant in conversations that truly shape championships. It is a philosophy that requires discipline, especially when fans naturally crave immediate action. Not every season-defining move happens at the deadline. Sometimes the most important decisions are the ones that do not get made. As the game against Dallas unfolds, these layers remain intertwined. The score will matter, but so will the process. How the Warriors defend without fouling, how they handle stretches of adversity, and how their younger players respond to responsibility will all feed into the larger narrative. This team is still writing its story, and each game adds another page, filled with subtle clues about what might come next. There is also an underlying sense that urgency is slowly increasing inside the organization, even if it is not being expressed publicly. The Western Conference leaves very little room for extended stagnation, and every stretch of games can swing positioning dramatically. That reality forces the Warriors to treat each matchup as both a proving ground and a measuring stick. Dallas, even with its limitations, represents a team that can expose lapses if focus slips for even a few minutes, which makes attention to detail non-negotiable. Defensively, Golden State knows that discipline will be the deciding factor. Limiting second-chance opportunities, closing out under control, and communicating through switches are areas that have fluctuated recently. When those elements are sharp, the Warriors look connected and confident. When they are not, opponents find rhythm quickly. That is why veterans within the locker room have emphasized consistency over flashes of brilliance. The foundation has to be stable before anything else can be built on top of it. Another element worth watching is how the bench responds when momentum shifts. In recent games, there have been stretches where energy dipped when rotations changed, and those moments have proven costly. Depth is not just about talent, but about reliability. Players stepping into those roles must understand that even a few smart possessions can change the flow of a game. That awareness separates teams that survive the grind from those that fade late. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. Whispers grew louder across league circles as word spread that a seismic move may be taking shape behind closed doors. According to sources close to the situation, Giannis Antetokounmpo has quietly given a positive signal regarding a potential future with Golden State, a development that has set off intense internal discussions within the Warriors front office. Nothing has been announced, contracts remain unsigned, and public silence is absolute. But the mood around the league suggests something far more serious than casual interest. Executives familiar with the conversations describe a scenario in which Golden State believes the window to act is now. The Warriors, long known for their patience and precision, are said to be weighing the final details of a bold decision, one that could redefine the balance of power in the NBA. The idea of pairing Giannis' relentless athleticism with the Warriors' spacing, ball movement, and championship DNA has been circulating for months. But insiders insist that the tone has recently shifted from hypothetical to actionable. Giannis, for his part, has always been careful with words and loyal in posture, which makes this rumored yes all the more intriguing. Those close to the star forward suggest it is not a rejection of his past, but an openness to a new challenge, one built around culture, legacy, and the chance to compete for the biggest stages again. Golden State's leadership core is believed to have played a major role in these discussions, emphasizing vision over immediacy and stability over spectacle. Round the league, rival teams are watching closely, aware that a single internal green light could trigger a cascade of moves. Cap gymnastics, trade assets, and long-term planning are all part of the equation. But none of that has cooled the speculation. If the Warriors do, in fact, hit the gavel as rumored, this would not just be another star movement. It would be a statement that Golden State is prepared to reshape itself once more, betting that Giannis Prime and their championship infrastructure are a match too powerful to ignore. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs. Community, stay tuned for the next video.